The King's Speech, and what to expect from Canada's latest minority government. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Left, turn!
The King speaks.
This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart. I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians.
Canada's head of state, the King of Canada, King Charles III, reading the Canadian government's speech from the throne. It's the first time in almost 50 years that the reigning British monarch has opened the Canadian Parliament, the last to do so, the late Queen Elizabeth II in 1977, some 48 years ago. This is an international event with watchers in Canada, in the United Kingdom, and in the United States wondering what, if any, language would be in this speech that would signal Canada's sovereignty, amid all the talk from President Trump about wanting to make Canada the 51st state. King Charles outlined how Canada has grown and become fully independent since Queen Elizabeth II opened Parliament in 1957.
It has been nearly 70 years since the Sovereign first opened Parliament. In the time since, Canada has dramatically changed, repatriating its constitution, achieving full independence, and witnessing immense growth. Canada has embraced its British, French, and Indigenous roots and become a bold, ambitious, innovative country that is bilingual, truly multicultural, and committed to reconciliation. The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada. It also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present. As it should, it stands proudly as a symbol of Canada today in all her richness and dynamism.
And the King spoke about the world Canada now finds itself in.
When my dear late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, opened a new Canadian Parliament in 1957, the Second World War remained a fresh, painful memory. The Cold War was intensifying. Freedom and democracy were under threat. Canada was emerging as a growing economic power and a force for peace in the world. In the decades since, history has been punctuated by epoch-making events: the Vietnam War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the start of the War on Terror. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect.
While there is much more attention being paid to this speech from the throne, all speeches like this are about outlining a government's priorities. They are the Canadian government's words, after all, not the King's. On that front, the Carney government provided lofty language about building Canada's economy.
The government is guided by its conviction that the economy is only truly strong when it serves everyone. Many Canadians are struggling to get ahead. The government is responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving two-income families up to $840 a year. It will cut the GST on homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers, delivering savings of up to $50,000. And it will lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million.
It puts a wrap on a quick 2-day visit to Canada for both Charles and Camilla. The royal couple are now greeting well-wishers in downtown Ottawa, and a little later they will head to the Ottawa airport for their return flight to the UK.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
He is with us every week to talk about the hot stories in the news and offer his take. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. How are you today?
Doing very well. Thanks, Rob.
You're navigating all the road closures because, you know, you live in a pretty tony area of the nation's capital, and you're right on the ceremonial route for the royal couple. They'll be headed to the airport now. So what, are you housebound or what?
I am. That's excellent point. I am housebound because I'm only about a block from Lansdowne Park. And whenever there's, a president comes into town or a king in this instance, the more important they are, the more the police, they literally, it's crazy. They just they'll shut down Bronson Avenue, which is the thoroughfare going to the airport. And it's a major arterial for people just to get around Ottawa. And they'll shut down the canal, all through the Glebe and to the downtown, beside the Rideau Canal, the famous canal for skating that people know about. And so it's just, Ottawa's not a big city, but we're spread out. But the downtown, they can close down the downtown really quickly because of security issues. And so I just sit in the house. I just don't go out. I don't even try to go out because I know it'll be almost impossible.
Well, they can keep you housebound, but they can't shut you up. So let's talk about what you're hearing. I'd really like to know what you're hearing, about your impressions of what you're hearing from Canada's new Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson. He said during his speech in Calgary that he would like to see Canada become a conventional and clean energy superpower. What do you think about those remarks?
Well, it was music to my ears. And just so nobody can accuse me, I do not consult to this industry. I do not invest in the energy industry, whether conventional or alternatives. The only thing my only relationship is I've heated my house with natural gas for 38 years, and I have a gasoline car, a Honda. But that's it. But the reason I'm so big on this and why I thought it was an excellent speech, I mean, there's two separate reasons. One is this is, I think, going to reduce the passions in Alberta around referenda and separation, or even alleged or potential separation. So on the political side, this is going to really reduce the Sturm and Drang and anger in Alberta and Western Canada. But the larger benefit, and this is not being said enough, unfortunately, by anybody, I don't think. Stephen Gordon, a very distinguished professor at Laval, about 10 years or so ago, maybe 12 years, he did a very nice study, and it was about the oil and gas and what its contribution was. And he found that in the last quarter of a century, oil and gas was about, if I recall, 75% of the total increase in our standard of living. Well, Trevor Thom, who's a young up-and-coming economist at University of Calgary, did a similar. They didn't cooperate at all. I don't even know if they know each other. But he did a similar study, came to the same conclusion, that the oil and gas industry has a disproportionate impact on our overall standard of living. And so for those Canadians, and there are people, unfortunately, who don't know what they're talking about, and they say, that just benefits Alberta. They're wrong. They are empirically, econometrically wrong. The revenues that flow through to the federal government, and yes, the Alberta government, are just stunning and staggering. Even today, after 9 years of the team that I think humorously but affectionately refer to as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and that's Trudeau, Guilbeault, Wilkinson, and Freeland. Even after 9 years of their attempts to shut down or restrict, diminish oil and gas industry, it's still the number one export. I'm sure there's lots of Canadians who think right now that it's cars, automobiles. It's not even close. Not even close.
No, it's not even close.
Our number one export is oil and gas and critical minerals. So if you say natural resources writ large, if we didn't have them, we would be in desperate, trouble. So what he is saying, Mr. Hodgins is saying, I'm very pleased with his appointment. I think he's saying the right thing, and I think he's a smart guy. He was at Goldman Sachs for many years with Mark Carney,
Sure.
He was at the Bank Canada, and then he was at Ontario Hydro. Yeah. I think he's just the right person for the time, for the moment.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. He's saying all the right things. Let me ask you this.
To go forward. I know that there's a minoritarian view. Guilbeault, of course, is the most vocal. He was the one who spoke out of his lane only a week ago, saying there's no need for pipelines. My criticism, as you know, Rob, of Guilbeault is he's not evidence-based. He's an ideologue, an extreme ideologue. He does not study stats like I do. I sit and study Natural Resource Canada stats. I study Stats Canada. He doesn't. I don't think he has. If he even read the IEA report, which is the UN body for energy, he would know that they're predicting strong demand for oil and gas right through past 2050. And he's just not evidence-based. He's representing his own ideological preferences and presenting them to people as fact when they're not.
Okay.
They're just his own personal view that he wants oil and gas to be reduced more and more and more. And yet the demand for it is going up, up, and up. In fact,
we have to stop here. We'll stop here, and we'll pick things up on the other side. And when we do, I just want to ask you, do you think that this government is serious, especially when it says it wants to be a superpower in conventional energy? Do you believe that this government is serious? We'll be right back. We're back with Professor Ian Lee with us every Tuesday here on Now You Know. We all know Mark Carney, big promoter of carbon taxes in the past. Prime Minister Mark Carney, former United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Change, for crying out loud. So can we take this new Liberal government in Ottawa seriously? I mean, it's one thing to say, we want to be a clean energy superpower, but does that mean wind farms and solar farms all across the country? Or do they really mean it when they say they want to be a conventional energy superpower? What do you think?
This is an excellent question. I assure you, I have thought about it just about nonstop for about the last 2 or 3 weeks. Because, and I want to explain why, I think there's almost unanimity in the country that we must become less dependent on the states for our trade. I'm not saying we're all in agreement to the degree. Some say we shouldn't trade with the states at all, which of course is preposterous. Others are saying, no, we just got to diversify our trade. We won't get into that debate. But the moment you say diversify the trade, and everyone says, yes, great idea. It sounds so wonderful, and yes, that's what we got to do. But then the devil's in the details. Diversify what? What are we diversifying to other countries? Well, there's three very broad. The economy is chopped up into three big chunks by Stats Canada and by economists and by analysts like me. There's the upstream natural resources, where you extract things, chop down trees, grow fruit and vegetables on farms, catch fish in the ocean. That's all upstream natural resources. The second is manufacturing, and then the third is the services sector, which is 80% of Canada, because most of us work in office environments in front of a computer. That's the services sector. So the idea that we're going to export services when we have no tech giants in Canada is silly. It's not going to happen. Well, then we turn to cars. Well, as I've been saying to anybody who will listen to me, the idea that we can export F-150s and Dodge Durangos and 2-ton Lincoln Navigators to the Chinese or the Japanese or the Europeans is preposterous. They drive little tiny little cars that are 4-cylinder. I've been many, many times to both Asia and to Europe. They don't drive F-150s or Dodge Ram trucks. And yet that's 60% of the output of the auto industry in Canada.
Don't know what they're
so
missing.
We're not going to pivot by exporting manufactured goods. What's left if we do want to diversify? It's called resources. So if we are serious, and we're not just blowing smoke if we're serious about diversifying, that means we've got to diversify with something that the world wants. And the world has very clearly said, I'm talking Germany, I'm talking Japan, South Korea, China, they want our liquefied natural gas and oil. So there's a beautiful confluence here. We've got enormous amounts of many kinds of natural resources, but especially oil and gas, and the world in Asia and Europe wants it. So it seems to me that if he wants to get reelected, Mr. Carney, I think he's a very smart guy. I think he's figured this out all by himself without listening to me. I don't think he has. I think he's come to the conclusion that we've got to develop our conventional sources and expand them and export them like crazy. And I think the thing about conventional and alternatives, he's saying that to placate, I think, the red liberals, the progressive liberals, whatever you want to call them, on the left side of the Liberal Party who are so opposed.
Right.
I mean, the five people from the BC, from Liberals that were elected in BC, the report I read, I think it was in the Toronto Star, is they're all completely opposed to pipelines and the export of natural resources. So he's got some work to do to convince them to come on board. And by saying, well, we're going to do both conventional and alternatives, I think that's going to be the necessary trade-off that he will have to offer to get the support from the red liberals or progressive liberals to support a very large increase in conventional energy, which means oil and gas.
All right. Well, very good stuff. Hopefully it won't be housebound for too much longer. And thanks again.
It's a beautiful day in Ottawa, Rob. It's a beautiful day. I can sit outside and just enjoy the sun.
Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University.
The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday Panel with Ashton Arsenault, partner at Crestview Strategies. Welcome back, Ashton. Good to hear from you today.
Good to be here, Rob.
And Chris Sims is with us today. Chris is the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, a former journalist and staffer on Parliament Hill. How are you?
Wonderful, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Well, let's talk about this big day in the nation's capital, the throne speech delivered by King Charles III. Now, it has been reported that one of the reasons the government wanted the king to deliver the speech from the throne is to send a message to Donald Trump about Canada's sovereignty. But let's kind of flip that around. Ashton, do you think the Trump administration really cares or is even paying attention? Because honestly, most of the American political news that I've been seeing has been about other things, like Trump's big, beautiful bill, for example. Do you think the Americans are paying attention to something like this?
Well, I think it's probably the worst day in Ottawa history to be a commuter to the downtown core. If you want to start there. But look, I mean, the speech from the throne, it's a great parliamentary tradition. It's a great Canadian tradition. And there is no comparable experience in the United States. I think the closest thing you get to this is the State of the Union address to Congress by the president. And I'll take it a step further. Look, I think the visual of having a monarch come and deliver a throne speech or equivalent to open up a legislature is a foreign concept to our American friends. This is republic versus federation. They fought a war over this after all, and I'll take it even further. I'm going to be exceptionally blunt. I don't think the White House cares about our throne speech at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they had little bit more than a White House intern actually examining the document. And look, I think the symbolism is great. I think the fact that Canada will never be the 51st state is amazing rhetoric, but the Americans do not care about our throne speech. Full stop.
Chris, what do you think?
So I'm a rare bird because I'm a kind of a monarchist within the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. But they love me anyway. I think that this is for Canadians. I think we would do a lot better to quit obsessing over what people in Washington, D.C. think of Canadians, including with our identity and who we are with our heritage and our history. And so why not just say that the throne speech was for Canada and for Canadians, because we are a constitutional monarchy, and the sovereign King Charles III is our head of state. So to have him delivering the throne speech, it's literally called a throne speech for that reason. So I think it's solid optics, solid communications. We will be taking a pretty close look at some of the expenses. We have been seeing a lot of premiers that are there and a lot of folks who are gathered into Ottawa, so we will be taking a look at that.
Okay, so it's for domestic consumption then. Can we agree on that then? We'll agree on that. It's for domestic. Yeah. Okay, it's pretty good politics then, wouldn't you? It looks great on TV. I mean, it helps that it is a beautiful spring day in the nation's capital. Everything is green and red and white. It's going to be all over the news. It'll be all, I mean, it's been like end-to-end coverage on the news networks. It'll be all over the national newscast this evening. I think it's quite a coup that they've pulled it off here. What do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, exceptional start for the Carney government, right? Even before things get, kicked off in the House of Commons, you have, for but the third time in history and the first time since 1977, a sitting monarch reading out the speech from the throne. I mean, it's really tough to get off to a better start than that. And obviously, the optics, the pomp, the circumstance, the pageantry. I think Chris is absolutely right. There's a certain vintage of Canadian and a certain class of Canadian that absolutely eats this up. So tough to come up with a better way to start if you're the Mark Carney government.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Chris? You agree?
I would have advised them to do this. If it were my job,
really? Okay.
I would absolutely have advised them to do this, just to hit a nice big royal reset button. Some of these traditions, as we know from some of the coronations we've watched and weddings we've watched, they go back 1,000 years. So, the Americans can't compare to this. And again, it would really benefit us if we stop obsessing so much with D.C. and look back to our own history and our own traditions. I think it was smart, really smart.
I would also say I thought it was a nice touch for the former prime ministers to be invited to see them sitting there in the Senate chamber. There's Stephen Harper, and he's sitting next to Prime Minister Trudeau, and they're talking, and I just can't help myself. Oh, I would so want to be within earshot of that conversation. I mean, what are they actually talking about? But that was a nice touch as well, I thought.
If you go back to history, just briefly,
King
George VI, when he came here with the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, right on the brink of the Second World War, they laid the foundation stone for the War Memorial, the one that's right downtown where Nathan Cirillo was killed. So the connection to the crown and this family, so it would have been King Charles III's grandmother, it goes way back.
Ashton, you wanted to jump in there?
No, I was just going to say I also saw Kim Campbell. I'm sure she was sharing her experience about that summer intern she had.
You're mean. That's just mean. Okay. As for the speech itself, I mean, what'd you think of it, Ashton? I mean...
Yeah, look, I did see the speech. I'll be honest with you, I was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't some, rambling tome or the first chapter of Ulysses. The reality is there's really no rules around how to write one of these things or how long it should be, other than it should be, of course, reflective of the government's priorities. And so with that in mind, I think it hit the mark today. I mean, the speech seems to mirror the mandate letter issued by the Prime Minister, which is where I think they want to be. And obviously, again, the visuals were fantastic. And just going through the priorities, I mean, it's pretty tight and to the point. Pithy, I would even call it. And we know what those priorities are going to be. And yeah, there was a little bit of, stay off our lawn, we're Canada, we're sovereign, but not as much as I otherwise would have expected. And I think we've got a clear blueprint for what this session in the House is going to look like.
Quick comment on that, Chris.
As far as the substance go, the main thing that alerted me was the CBC element. They're looking to jack up funding with the CBC to $2 billion with a B dollars per year, so that alarmed me.
Okay, we'll be right back. They're on their way to the airport now. The motorcade headed to the airport. So with the ceremony over, it will be time for the government to get down to business, at least for a few weeks. We'll talk about that when we come back on our Newsday panel on News Radio. So the ceremony is over now. The new minority government, Liberal government, can get down to business. What are the government's priorities, and what can possibly be done before the summer break, which is a little more than 3 weeks from now? Ashton?
Yeah, if we take them at their word, the first order of business is going to be their middle-class tax cut. I think that makes a lot of sense. They seem committed to getting that across the finish line this session, and they've got the overarching goal of July 1st for that to be in place. If they're smart, they will make that bill very simple and in a manner that the opposition can support. I think, broadly speaking, most parties would be on board with a middle-class tax cut. They can quibble around the edges. So as long as it's a straight-to-it bill, no poison pills, potentially that gets on the fast track, and that's actually something that can get done in the next 3 weeks. So that should be priority number one. And then, of course, questions after that. What happens next? So we know they want to bust up interprovincial trade. They've committed to dropping legislation before July 1st, but not actually getting it across the finish line, And they also want to go forward with a tariff support package. So one thing I'm going to highlight is that they're sort of outlining large infrastructure projects of national significance and how they want them to move along more quickly. So that's sort of one project, one approval. I'd be very interested to know what that looks like. And I think, and rightfully so, there are a lot of questions around what specifically that's going to look like.
Chris, what do you see this government getting done before the summer break?
Well, to his point, the middle-class tax cut would be great to see. That on average, they say, would have saved the working family about $800 or so per year. Mm-hmm. So that's good money back in their pocket. Up to $840, Yeah, as far as the infrastructure goes, we would just like them to repeal Bill C-69. Just scrap it altogether and then let businesses do their thing. What we don't want is the government saying, oh, well, we need to build it. We need taxpayers to nationalize a pipeline or whatever that is, because it just winds up costing $30 billion, for example, like happened with the Trans Mountain Pipeline. So we want government to just go back and get rid of laws like Bill C-69. The key that I would strongly recommend on top of Bill C-69 getting scrapped is they need to split Bill C-63. So that's the one that's the so-called Online Harms Act. They need to separate it so that the images of child abuse, for sure disgusting, that can go over to justice, separate it. And then get rid of the censorship element, which is within Canadian heritage, because that is what a lot of independent media and podcasters are worried about, of it stifling free expression. So if they could just split that bill, I think they could do that within the next few weeks.
And at the Taxpayers Federation, what has your organization thought of not having a spring budget, but rather coming back? I mean, first it was just going to be even a fall economic update, but now they're promising a full budget in the fall. What's your organization's opinion on that?
Well, we want as much transparency as possible. We want the budget to be balanced. The main thing right now is they're playing this cute game where they're saying, oh, we're going to balance the operating budget. No. Your bank doesn't care if you're balancing your operating budget. It wants to know how much debt you're in. So we were very upset when we heard there was going to be no budget. And now they've said, okay, it'll be a fall budget, which, we'll look forward to that. A lot of governments do wait until the fall after they're elected, but initially it was sounding like we were going to get nothing. So we're happy to see that they're going to have a budget in the fall.
Okay. Pierre Poilievre was in the Senate chamber for the throne speech today. He's not a member of Parliament. Everyone knows he lost in his own riding. We anticipate a by-election probably sometime this summer. How does he stay relevant, and how should he spend his summer months? What should he be doing this summer other than trying to win a by-election in Alberta? Ashton, what would you say?
Yeah, well, there's two things, right? And I know, knowing what I know about him, the fact that he can't, march into the House of Commons and hold the Prime Minister to account himself must be eating away at him. But the key for him at this point in time is visibility. So as irritating as it no doubt is for him, he's got to open himself up to media after question period each and every day. He's got to be giving counter scrums each and every time cabinet meets. And so for him, he might actually end up doing more loitering around the House of Commons than he potentially would have otherwise. And unfortunately, that is what he has to do. But after June 20th, when the House of Commons is up, my strong suggestion would be you're going to see an awful lot of him out in Alberta as he tries to ingratiate himself in that riding, even though it's a pretty safe Conservative riding. Again, knowing what I know about Pierre Poilievre, he's not going to take a by-election victory for granted, and a disastrous outcome in that riding, or even an underperformance in terms of just what type of vote share he gets, would not sit well with anybody. So I think he's going to be knocking on a lot of doors post June 20th, Rob.
Really? Okay. Pierre Poilievre, not in the House. He excels at question period, but he can't be there as Ashton said. It just must be just killing him.
Yep.
How does he stay in the public eye, and what would be your advice to how Mr. Poilievre should spend his summer, Chris Sims, because you might see a lot of him in your province?
Yeah, I think I can see his riding from here if I squint. He needs to stay right there in the foyer of the House of Commons and give it back every single day in a kind of a counter scrum. As soon as the House rises, he's got to skedaddle and come out west here and win this riding. But he needs to combine that, I would advise him, with rallies for his supporters in general, because it wasn't just like a vote blue movement. He definitely built like a Pierre Poilievre hope is on the way type of a thing. And there are a lot of people who are still really struggling. Like they're fighting to make ends meet. There's a lot of desperation in those crowds. And I would advise him to make sure that he connects with them again, poses for the pictures, stays there. He usually stays there for 3 hours after those rallies and does a photo lineup and speaks to every one of them. So he's got to do more of that.
Okay. Now, speaking of Alberta politics, we'll rely on you because you're there and Ashton and I are not. So the premier of Alberta called 3 by-elections, including the one for Ned Nenshi. I think it's Edmonton Strathcona. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So is he a sure thing there? That was Rachel Notley's riding, was it not?
Yeah, he should be. That's a very safe riding for the NDP. Strathcona is kind of that older version of Edmonton. If it were in Ottawa, it would be like the Rockcliffe area. So that's where you're going to get the stone and brick buildings and the cutesy little farmers markets. He should have that. So that should be his riding for sure. And before that, like you said, it was Rachel Notley's riding.
How is he doing, in your opinion? As you're not a New Democrat, I know.
He's in kind of a predicament where he doesn't have a seat in the legislature.
Right.
So he's got to make sure that he's giving it back to the media right there in the foyer. I will point out that he was effective as Calgary mayor until he was under fire from a lot of criticism. And so I'm waiting to see how he responds in a room full of people who aren't just lavishing praise on him. He gets really chippy really fast. So I want to see how he deals with a big crowd.
I mean, what's always your impression been of him, Nenshi, Ashton? The kind of politician he is.
Yeah, I think to Chris's point, I mean, he's suffering at this point from being out of sight, out of mind. It hopefully won't come as a huge shocker to anybody listening in. I'm not a huge fan of Mr. Nenshi, nor was I a fan of his when he was the mayor. I think there is a constituency for his brand of politics. I think he's completely outclassed and outmatched by the current premier in Alberta, but I do expect him to win that seat. And let's see how the next couple of months unfold. If I'm Danielle Smith, I'm looking at a election sooner rather than later. That's my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think she will.
Oh, really? Early election in Alberta?
Yeah, I think so too. That's a smart way to go, especially with the Nenshi factor and with this building sovereignty movement.
Yes.
If she can get another big mandate sooner, that would be politically smart.
Okay, interesting. Thank you to the two of you. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll speak soon.
Thanks, Noel.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Ashton Arsenal, partner at Crestview Strategies. Chris Sims, Alberta Director, Canadian Taxpayers Federation, former journalist and staffer on the Hill.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic Canada as an energy superpower. Canada as an energy superpower. And here are some questions to get the conversation going today. We have a lot of questions for you today because, there's a lot to this topic. But let's start with this one. Do you support or are you opposed to the government advancing policies that would make Canada an energy superpower in both clean energy and conventional energy? Just where do you stand on that? Where do you come down on that, making Canada an energy superpower? Would you say that's something you're in favor of? What would you say? Canada becoming a superpower in oil and gas, hydroelectricity, nuclear power. What about Canada becoming an energy superpower in so-called clean energy, wind power or solar power or geothermal? Do you think that government should be more focused on the clean energy side of things and say less focused on the conventional energy side of things, i.e. fossil fuels? Or should it be the other way around? Should the government focus more on fossil fuels and less on so-called clean energy? Just some things to think about as we get the conversation going. Here's something else. Do you think the new government in Ottawa, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, a former promoter of carbon taxes, and the former United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Change, is serious when he says he wants Canada to be an energy superpower, both in clean energy and conventional energy? Conventional energy that includes oil and gas. Oil and gas not mentioned in the throne speech today at all. Do you believe what the Carney government says when it says it wants to make Canada an energy superpower and that includes conventional energy? Is that something you believe? Or do you think this Liberal government led by Mark Carney will have the same sort of attitude toward oil and gas as the previous Liberal government led by Justin Trudeau, who wore sneakers to the throne speech today? What would you say? What do you think? What do you believe? What does your gut tell you? It's such an important topic, and it encompasses a lot of things. We really want you to participate in the conversation today. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. It's about the economy. Yeah, it's about the environment. It's about jobs. It's about climate change. It's even about national unity. It's about all of that. And you know what? It's not just an Alberta thing. Sure, the oil and gas industry is centered in Alberta, and that province feels as though any success that Alberta has enjoyed has been because of its own efforts and has happened in spite of efforts by Liberals in Ottawa to disrespect, hamper, handcuff, and harm their industry. But it's not just an Alberta thing. It's certainly a Newfoundland and Labrador thing. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston has said that his province has said no to too many projects for far too long, and that his province has spent too long chasing economic opportunities away, and it's not going to do that anymore. And for his government, that includes the potential to lift bans on fracking, bans on uranium mining, promoting more development of the offshore oil industry, even if that puts the government on a collisionary course with the fishery. But that PC government in Nova Scotia is sounding very pro-natural resource development. In Ontario, there's a big battle brewing, and it's a story you'll want to pay attention to. Ontario has long had dreams of developing what's known as the Ring of Fire. Very remote northern Ontario, 500 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. Way up there. But rich in things like chromite and cobalt and nickel and copper and platinum. And the Ford government says these are all the things that we need in the so-called low-carbon economy. And to try and advance development in the Ring of Fire, The Ford government wants help from the federal government to build a road because there's no road there. It's fly-in only right now, and it wants to designate the Ring of Fire as a special economic zone. And it's moving ahead with legislation to that effect. It's a bill called Bill 5, which would create a special economic zone. Big problem. First Nations don't like it because they say it tramples all over their treaty rights. And they say there's a very good chance that if this bill goes forward, expect blockades. Blockades again. First Nations blockades of roads, railways, entrances to mining sites. It could become a serious, serious situation. Pay attention to that story. The situation in the United States seems to have shifted attitudes about the need for Canada to become more economically self-sufficient. And one of the ways it can do that is to develop its abundant natural resources. But others are saying not so fast. What about the environment? What about the fight against climate change? What about First Nations? What about the future? And is conventional energy really the future? Or is it going to be something else? So we want you to join the conversation on this. Offer an opinion. The last Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, when foreign leaders would come to Canada and inquire about buying LNG, for example, Mr. Trudeau would say, no business case for that. Now there seems to be more openness to what the government calls projects that are in the national interest. And just last week, the new Minister of Energy and Natural Resources in this new government said the government's goal is to make Canada an energy superpower in conventional and clean energy. What do you think of that idea? And do you think this government that you have in Ottawa is serious, especially when it comes to conventional energy? Give it some thought. Give us a call, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. Tuesday Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Canada as an energy superpower. The new government says it wants to make Canada an energy superpower in both clean energy and conventional energy. What do you think of the idea? How should the government go about it? Should it focus more on, say, clean energy, less on conventional energy, or the other way around, focus more on conventional energy, less on clean energy? And do you believe this government is serious, this Liberal government in Ottawa, when it says it wants to make Canada an energy superpower? 1-833-668-2577. There's a line available there. We'd love to hear from you today. Let's go to Airdrie. It's Mark up first today in Airdrie. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. All right, let's try one more time. Hello, Mark in Airdrie. I kind of hear Mark, but I don't think he hears me. Let's try Timothy in Calgary today. Hello, Timothy. Hi, Timothy.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Timothy. Good to hear from you, Timothy. What do you think about this? Making Canada an energy superpower in clean energy and conventional energy. What do you think about that?
I think it's a fabulous idea. If it would happen, I do not know.
Okay.
And the reason I don't know is because I don't think Mark Carney is committed to conventional energy. So when he said that is committed to both clean energy and conventional energy, I believe it means that it's 90% committed to clean energy and 10% to conventional energy. That's what I believe.
Okay. If
but it won't stay that way.
Okay. Let's say that is the ratio. Nobody knows really what it is.
No.
But let's say the more of the focus is on like so-called clean energy, whatever your idea of that may be. Do you think there should be more focus on conventional energy, like oil and gas, developing oil and gas?
Well, just like Ian Lee said this morning, is a stats guy. You know, the numbers don't lie. If the number says that up until 2050, like he said, and I'm quoting him, there will be a strong demand for conventional energy, then I think we should, pay some attention to that.
Okay. All right. You'd like to see more attention paid to conventional energy, to oil and gas.
I would like to see that because there's demand for that. And if we don't do that, then we can't become the energy superpower that we claim that we want to be.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much for your call, Timothy. Okay, let's go back to Airdrie and try Mark again. I think we have Mark on the line here. Hello? Hi, Mark. Yeah, hi, Mark. That's twice. I think that's it. Bruce is up next in Calgary. Hello, Bruce.
Yeah, good morning, Rob.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Bruce. What's your opinion?
First-time caller here.
I appreciate it.
And I love your show. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. So kind.
Short answer is yes. Let's get her done.
Get her done. Okay, what does that look like, getting her done?
Well, I think they gotta get these nuclear power plants happening. You know, we're already running, we're in brownouts in here in Calgary too often. And, get the oil and gas going. And, I say become a superpower. Why not?
Okay. When the Liberal government in Ottawa says, we want to make Canada an energy superpower, both in clean and conventional energy, do you think the government is serious when it talks about conventional energy? Do you believe this government in Ottawa?
I like to hope so.
Okay.
What else can I say?
Okay.
You know, it's like, politicians make promises all the time. So, let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
You're willing to give them the benefit?
Well, let's get her done. Like, come on.
Get her done. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you. Some lines available there at 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. We are asking today, Canada as an energy superpower in both clean energy and conventional energy. This is what we are hearing from the new prime minister and from his point man on this file. No, his name is not Stephen Guilbeault or Jonathan Wilkinson anymore. It's a guy named Tim Hodgson who made a speech in Calgary last week. We're going to play some of for you coming up next, where he talks about wanting to make Canada an energy superpower, not just in clean energy, but also conventional energy. But these are Ottawa Liberals. So can you believe them? 1-833-668-2577. Talk back. Join the discussion, please. It's a very important one on News Radio. Peter in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Peter. Hi, Peter.
All right. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, Peter.
Serious? I don't know, man. It's time for Canada to follow like Norway's example, what they've done with their oil and gas industry, and pack away a certain amount of dollars from every barrel of oil sold, and they're very wealthy. And it's time we get back to that. And only time will tell with this little government. I don't trust them, but it'll only take a few short months. Oh, shoot, they're off, aren't they, till September? So we'll see. We'll see after the summer.
Yeah.
But I don't believe them.
Okay. You don't believe them. Okay.
No, not at all.
Kind of once bitten, twice shy, twice bitten, three times shy, that kind of thing. Okay. Now in Norway, I mean, you're right that Norway was very good at stashing the money away, the oil money away, and it has this huge sovereign wealth fund. But it also has a lot of it is state owned in Norway, right?
True, high taxes and going out to eat is expensive, but they've got that fund. And when I first moved to Alberta, I understand that Alberta had that fund, that Klein built that up. And I'm not sure where that is now after the NDP, and I don't know where that stands.
Well, that was called the Heritage Fund,
Correct,
and it predates Ralph Klein, but the problem is successive governments over the years kept dipping into it. There's not much money in it now compared to what could have been in it, Yeah, certainly.
We're going to see the strength of the Premier of Alberta, to stop some of these equalization payments. Quebec and Ontario do not need it. They're wealthy provinces as well.
Yeah, well, a conversation for another day. Yeah.
True.
Oh,
true.
Okay.
So we'll see how the Premier stands up and helps make this happen.
Okay. Thank you. A little skeptical. I can appreciate that. Amir in Calgary as well today. It's not just an Alberta thing, this. Okay. I'd like to get calls from other parts of the country, but welcome our callers from Calgary. Amir. Hi, Amir.
Hey, hi there, Rob. How are you doing?
Hi. Good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. So
Good.
I'm calling for first time. My son is a big fan of your show.
Okay.
So the government, I think this government can deliver on this promise of energy superpower, but they need to get out of the pipe dream of clean energy. There's no such thing as clean energy because we're recycling the same resources again and again. So go for what we have right now. We have the oil, we have the tar sands. Go explore that. We have nuclear energy. There are a lot of nuclear plants in Ontario producing the energy. They're New Brunswick. Alberta should have a couple of them too. And that's the way to go. Solar and wind and all that power, they're like too expensive to do anything.
Okay. So not if it includes, the huge solar farms. They're even talking about offshore solar farms in Atlantic Canada, for example, or wind farms. Yeah, and solar farms. You don't think those are efficient, too costly, maybe not as reliable, for example?
No, they're reliable, they're efficient, they're good, but the technology is so expensive, it's not profitable or viable to do and get a return of investment on it as quickly as oil and gas or compared to coal or compared to nuclear energy.
Gotcha.
And actually,
the fact that it is a liberal government, the fact that it's a liberal government in Ottawa, does that make you skeptical about claims that it's making about wanting to be a superpower in conventional energy? Are you a little skeptical of that?
No, I'm pretty sure they're going to deliver it because they're not.
You think so?
The extreme left wing, they're left center, right? So they're sensible. Carney is a sensible person. The energy minister is sensible. So they know what they're talking about. They're not like having an ideologue and following their ideologue as a fact. They're talking about the reality of the ground. So I'm pretty hopeful that they know what they're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, it sure is. Lots of lines available there, folks. 1-833-668-2577. We're talking about energy policy in Canada, making Canada an energy superpower. The government says it wants to do this in both clean energy and conventional energy. What do you think of that idea? And how should the government go about it? Should it focus on clean energy? Should it focus more on conventional energy? And this is a liberal government that we're talking about in Ottawa. So do you believe that this government is serious when it says it wants to make Canada an energy superpower? I mean, let's listen to the new Minister of Energy. His name is Tim Hodgson. He is the person that Prime Minister Mark Carney named his cabinet Minister of Natural Resources, Minister of Energy. A few days ago, he was in Calgary at an event put on by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce. And for some people, it sounded like he was saying all the right things. If you're one of those people who think the previous government, they didn't get it when it came to the potential for Canada's natural resources sector, let's listen to a little bit of Minister Hodgson here.
In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. I'm going to say that again. In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery.
That's going to sound good to some people. No delays, more delivery. Maybe it'll sound good to many people. What do you think of that? Do you like the sound of that? For some people, that will be a much more welcome message from Liberals in Ottawa than what people used to hear from Prime Minister Trudeau. Now, we just had the speech from the throne, And it's been noted that if you read through the text of the speech from the throne delivered by King Charles III today in Ottawa, oil and gas isn't even mentioned. There's no mention of oil and gas specifically. And Pierre Poilievre, just moments ago, the leader of the Conservative Party, but not a member of Parliament anymore, of course, was responding to the speech from the throne. And this is what he had to say about the Liberals and their plans for energy policy in this country.
We saw promises about getting things built, but no mention of oil and gas or pipelines. Pipelines are, of course, the thing we most need to build. Didn't get one mention. Nor did they mention getting rid of the anti-energy laws that have kept our resources in the ground. C-69, the no development law. C-48, the shipping ban. The energy cap. The electric vehicle mandate. All of these things were left out of the speech altogether. No specific plans to get anything done, even though, as the Prime Minister has said, we are in a crisis to break our dependence on the American economy.
Okay, so that's Pierre Poilievre. Now, some people may remember back in 2022, I remember this. The German Chancellor was Olaf Scholz at the time, and he came to Montreal, and he was meeting with Justin Trudeau. They had a news conference. There was a lot of talk at the time because Germany was so reliant on Russian oil and gas. And Germany wanted to find other sources in other countries to replace Russian oil and gas. And one such country could have been Canada, given that we have one of the largest reserves of natural gas in the world. And what did Mr. Trudeau do? Well, let's listen to what Mr. Trudeau, a little bit of what Mr. Trudeau said at the time.
Canada is a major oil and gas producer in the world. But because of our commitment to fight climate change, we are working very, very hard to decarbonize and develop other sources of energy that we can rely on and that we can share with the world. What Russia's invasion of Ukraine has done has two impacts. One on the global energy situation. In the short term, it has made it imperative that friends and allies of Canada, like Germany and Europe, reduce their reliance on Russian oil and gas. But in the medium and long term, it means the world needs to accelerate its ending of its dependency on oil and gas in general. So we are in a situation in the short term where we will do what we can to contribute to the global supply of energy by increasing our capacities in the short term and explore ways to see if it makes sense to export LNG, and if there's a business case for it, to export LNG directly to Europe. And that's something that economic conversations are going on between businesses in Canada and in Germany. But in the medium term and long term, Canada can and will position itself to be a key supplier of energy to the world in a net zero economy.
Okay. Net zero economy, net zero. A lot of people thought that was a brain zero thing. That became known as the no business case soundbite. Well, if there's a business case for it, but the real goal, take away from that, was to not be using fossil fuels at all. That was the view of Prime Minister Trudeau at the time, governing this country with vast reserves of natural gas and oil. No business case. That's what that became known as. So in that regard, when you rewind the tape, it does sound like a change in tone. Does it not? From this new Liberal government in Ottawa, what do you think? What do you think? Is this a change in tone with this new government in Ottawa that says we want Canada to be an energy superpower in clean energy and conventional energy? Joe up next on line one. Joe in Calgary. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Hi.
What do you think here? Hello, Joe.
I think the government is serious. Your knock against the liberals here, it's kind of a little bit nauseating. Like, how many pipelines has the Conservative government built in this country?
Okay. Okay.
Hello?
I'm not slamming the governor. I'm just asking, are you suspicious? Are you skeptical? Are you
just got built here that cost $27 billion? That was done by the Liberals, wasn't it?
It was nationalized. Yes, it was nationalized.
Yeah.
There was a private company that was building it.
Initiated that, though. I don't remember anything that Harper did.
Well, actually, it was Kinder Morgan that initiated it and then abandoned it, actually, and then the government nationalized it.
It got
if
built.
you want to go back in time.
It got built.
It was built at great expense and years behind schedule. Yes, but it was built. You're right. It was built.
It got built. The thing is that the private industry would not have built that pipeline.
The private industry was building the pipeline, sir. It was building the pipeline. Oh my gosh, it was building the pipeline.
No, they walked out. They walked away from it because it was too expensive. Because there was too many problems with indigenous approvals, provincial approvals, all kinds of stuff. Right?
Okay. Yes.
So
fair enough. There were all kinds of problems. There was opposition in parts of British Columbia to it, for sure. For sure. Yeah. There was.
There still is. There still is.
Yes.
I mean, there's all kinds of opposition against the LNG facilities being built out there. I mean, it's in the end, governments change their mind all the time. I mean, look at the states. Under the previous government, it was all clean energy, right? They were doing away with coal. They were doing away with some of the gas. And now it's all gone. It's kaput. Under Trump, they can drill anywhere they want.
Okay. What I'm really trying to get at is the government now says it wants Canada to be an energy superpower. Do you think that's a good idea? Well, I'm asking you, is there anything wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I say.
Okay. What if it's conventional energy like oil and gas? Are you okay? Are you okay with more pipelines? Like there's a push on now for a Northern Gateway pipeline and an Energy East pipeline. Would you be okay with that?
Well, you got to look at the practical terms of it. The North pipeline is probably doable. The one going east from Alberta all the way down to Newfoundland, that's a bit of a stretch.
Well, to New Brunswick.
Economically, I think it would be probably undoable. But if they can do it, great.
Okay.
Like we're going to the States now, and they want to shut that one down, right? So maybe
there's an issue of energy security, is there not? If your main pipeline that supplies much of Ontario has to run through the United States before it circles back up into Canada again, wouldn't you rather have all of that pipe going through Canada instead, so it's not even at risk of being shut down?
Of course I would, but the reality of the thing is that was a shorter route. I'm assuming that was a shorter route when they took that, and there was probably some economic benefits for the states when they did that too.
Okay.
And they're always it comes down to economy. It comes down to dollars and cents, right? Give me, pay me, and you can run that pipeline anywhere you want. Really, is the bottom line.
Okay.
So yeah.
So do you think, because you listen to, say, the leadership in Alberta, it says that Liberals in Ottawa have historically been hostile to the major wealth creation industry in that province. You don't believe that's the case? Do you think the Liberals in Ottawa have been good to Alberta?
Quebec says that. Manitoba says it. Saskatchewan says it. BC says it. It's a way of,
they're just playing political games.
Yeah.
Or
especially
trying to use
here. I mean, the witch we have up north there is just brutal. I mean, she brought up this whole business about separation and stuff. It's not doable. We're a landlocked province. What the hell are we going to do if we go out by ourselves? Go join.
Okay, well,
Montana.
I don't want to get into the whole Western separation thing, but a lot of people think if Alberta was treated better and was allowed to maximize its economic potential and find new markets for its main product, its energy, that would go a long way to, placating this sense of Western alienation.
Of
don't
course
you believe that?
But how are they going to get it out of the province? right? You can make all the oil you want and all the gas you want, but how are you going to get it out of the province unless you get some buyback from some of the other provinces, from the government, the federal government, maybe even going through the states, whatever. I mean, that's we've been sending it down there because they're buying it. So to go through BC, BC is difficult because of the mountains and stuff, of course. But it's one way or another. You have to get it out of the province. There's no point in having a whole bunch of oil and gas when you can't get it out.
Sure. Okay.
And even going up north.
But if it could happen again, if it could happen, and Canada, even if it means a conventional energy superpower, you'd be okay with that. That's all I'm asking, sir.
Well, no, I think, and look, I'm not going to be around in 50 years or whatever, right? But I worry about my sons, my grandsons, the future.
I understand.
They're going to have to deal with this business. I mean, one way or another, whether it's global warming or whatever, it doesn't hurt to clean things up. I mean, pollution. Gotcha. I mean, I see garbage and strewn all over the place in some areas. Like I've been to other parts of the world, and we're a pretty clean country comparatively, but we're also very underpopulated here. So we don't have the same problems as some other countries do.
All right, Joe. Thank you. I will try to be less nauseating. You call back sometime. Bye-bye. I'm talking about making Canada an energy superpower. The government says it wants to do that in both clean energy and conventional energy. Share your thoughts on this, please. Not just an Alberta thing, but the most interest is coming from Alberta today. Sandra is a first-time caller calling from Calgary. You're on the air, Sandra. What's your opinion here?
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I don't understand why we would not want to be a superpower. I mean, we've got all this debt, and the deficit keeps on growing. We would get the taxes. We could help get us out of debt and fund some social programs. With regards to where I believe it should be more heavily investment in conventional oil, just for the fact that I haven't seen clean energy like the EV batteries and everything like that been successful without a lot of government subsidies.
Oh, yes. A lot of government subsidies, in excess of $50 billion worth of government subsidies. A lot of doubts about those investments right now.
Yeah, so that's just my thoughts. I just feel that we could unleash this and get ourselves out of the mess that the last 10 years have done.
Okay. The fact that this is coming from, these remarks are coming from a Liberal government and a Liberal cabinet minister. We need to make Canada an energy superpower, both in clean energy and conventional energy. Clean energy, wind, solar, hydroelectricity, whatever. Conventional energy, oil and gas. Well, the fact that it's the Liberals saying it, what do you think about that?
Well, I have to admit, I'm UCP, I'm Poilievre all the way, but I have to admit that I'm somewhat hopeful about Carney. But then again, with the tariffs, he quietly removed the counter tariffs on Trump, and nothing was said. So I guess time will tell. I'm hopeful. So.
Right.
I guess that's my,
because it is early days. I guess because it is early days of this new government in Ottawa, you're willing to give it the benefit of the doubt for now. Be fair enough?
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that, So thank you very much for taking my call.
Well, thank you, Sandra, and thank you for calling for the first time. Hope it's not the last time. And that's it for hour number 1. We'll pick the conversation up right after latest breaking news. It's Talkback, talking energy policy today. All kinds of angles with your help. We'll be right back. Latest breaking news coming up next. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Canada is an energy superpower. Energy policy today. The new government says it wants Canada to be an energy superpower, both in clean energy and conventional energy. This is what the new Minister of Energy in the Carney government told a Calgary business audience in recent days.
In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. I'm going to say that again. In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. So what does that mean? It begins with a vision to build Canada into a conventional and clean energy and natural resources superpower. We have the resources. We have the people. We have the ideas. And we now have a government determined to lead and help unlock the potential of Canadian workers and businesses.
Okay. So, what do you think of what you're hearing from this government here? What do you think of this idea? How should the government go about it? Should it be focused more on clean energy, less on conventional energy? The other way around, focus more on conventional energy, less on clean energy. Do you believe this government is serious when it says it's open to making Canada a conventional energy superpower? Is it to be believed, in your opinion? 1-833-668-2577. Very important question for the Canadian economy. Wade in Sylvan Lake today. Thank you for waiting, Wade.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I would not believe a word that comes out of Mark Carney's mouth, and I would not believe a word of his words that he put into King Charles' mouth. And now I understand he's not going to take part in question period, because he doesn't want to get asked questions.
No. That's not what he said. Mr. Trudeau used to be there on Wednesdays and take all the questions, which is a British thing. They do that in the UK House of Commons. The British Prime Minister takes all the questions on Wednesdays. And that's what Prime Minister Carney's not going to do. He's just not going to do, I'll take all the questions on Wednesdays the way Trudeau used to do it.
Okay, fair enough. But
just to clear that up.
I believe he is going to govern in secret, and eventually he will hand out, because if we leave it to the government and not to the private sector, he is going to hand billions of dollars of contracts to Brookfield and to China. And he's going to do that all on the sly. It's probably already been all set up. But once Alberta gets free, once we become free, we will prosper in the West. But we need to get free first. Freedom first.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that another day. But thank you so much again, Wade, for your call. I mean, there are people who are going to be skeptical, not for the reasons Wade is skeptical, but because they think it's a bad idea, especially if they're focusing on conventional energy. And we're already seeing stories like this in the news media from environmentalists who say, well, what about the fight against climate change? Or in Ontario, big thing with mining in the north is, what about First Nations and treaty rights? Okay. This is just kind of the beginning of what could be a very tumultuous few years ahead. 1-833-668-2577. It's not just an Alberta thing. Kim in Calgary today. Hi, Kim.
Yes.
Hi, Kim.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kim.
Afternoon, I suppose. I will speak quickly because I'm just going into a meeting, but I wanted to correct some things that the gentleman, before you went to news, said. Harper and pipeline. Harper was well on the way to supporting Canada being an energy superpower. And during his tenure, the original Keystone and the Northern Clipper and the reversal of some eastern lines were done. They now carry 40% of Canada's oil. He also approved the Keystone XL and the Northern Gateway, etc. So I actually heard Don Martin on CTV say exactly the same thing as that gentleman. Pardon me, I'm walking. The Conservatives never built any pipelines. Totally untrue.
Okay.
And the other thing is, under the UN, landlocked countries do have rights to be able to export their product. And so I guess that's the main things that I wanted to say. And also the last thing is, the federal government should have the right to make projects in the national interest happen. We can't be held hostage to all of these various rent seekers. That's leadership that I hope that we will see. As far as Carney goes, he has no moral compass. He will do whatever is opportunistic for him. And I think we have some hope, because I don't believe his ego will allow him to be the one to sink Canada. But he has no other reason to do that besides that sort of a thing.
Okay, but why would he say, dispatch his energy minister, go to Calgary, go make this speech to the Calgary Chamber of Commerce and talk about making Canada an energy superpower, even in conventional energy? Why would he do that then, if he's not serious?
Because he doesn't want to be the one to see Canada going down. I mean, our GDP per capita is falling. I'm an investment banker. We have no money coming into this country. He doesn't want to be the one to have his legacy be that he sunk Canada. I don't believe he will do any support, any other reason than that.
Okay. Thank you for your call. And with that, hour number 2 of Talkback is underway, and we welcome your calls. Danny up next. Hi, Danny.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good, Danny.
I love your show.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
I say builder, and you know what? I hear a lot of skepticism coming from the general public on the show there, and I'm going to believe him until he gives me a good cause not to. If you build the darn thing, then we have it, right?
Right.
And that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt?
I am.
You are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Okay.
I would just point out he's not Tim Hodgson, for example, the new Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. He's not the only politician singing a different tune when it comes to the development of natural resources in this country, and saying that Canada needs to make more use of what we have here. We talked about this at the time. The Premier of Nova Scotia saying very similar things. Tim Houston, progressive conservative. Back in late January of this year, he had a news conference, offered his own version of what I called at the time kind of drill baby drill. He said his province has enormous potential in natural resources. It's time to start tapping into it. He noted that the province has an aging population, has skyrocketing healthcare costs. The government needs the money. So he's right now, fracking, for example, is banned in Nova Scotia. He said his government might lift that ban. He's open to more exploration for oil and gas offshore. He likes the idea of an Energy East pipeline. He said we can't keep banning things, that it's time to get shovels in the ground. And he said people in the West are sick and tired of Nova Scotia taking equalization payments, that that he's sick of having his province be a have-not province. So as I say, this is not just an Alberta thing. I know most of the calls are coming from Alberta today, but is very much not just an Alberta thing. Let's go to Hickey is up next. Thank you, Hickey, for calling. You're on the air.
Hey, calling in on the 1-800 Alberta line. Thanks for setting this one up, Rob.
Yeah, that's
Sounds like
okay.
a lot of
Yeah,
it's
go
in
ahead.
Alberta today.
Go
honestly, I don't think that Carney's going to do it. I don't think he's going to focus on oil. I think he realized when he went back to the EU that they want our LNG. I think that he's really going to focus a lot on LNG. And you know what?
Okay.
I think we need to partner in the Indigenous people and let them know that they get a share in it. I mean, if we start getting our LNG to the ocean, we can feed Africa, China, the EU. I mean, there's so many countries that want our LNG because it's way cleaner than the coal that they're using, and we have so much of it. I know it's not green energy, but it's cleaner than what they're using, and it would certainly help the pollution in the entire world if we used LNG everywhere to create electricity rather than coal.
Yeah. Good point. As whatever they want to call a transition fuel or whatever. I've heard it described it that way, Hickey.
Yeah, my kids work with cranes at Mammoet, and if you would be shocked at how much concrete you put into the ground for a windmill that only lasts 25 years. And once the 25 years is up, they just shut them down. They don't put new nacelles on the top of them or anything else. They shut them down because structurally they're no longer good, and they just leave all that concrete in the ground. But if you look it up on the internet on how much concrete is in there, it would astound you just the amount of trucks that they have to run out there with concrete to put up these windmills. Some of that stuff we need to think about long term for our kids, like your gentleman that was talking about prior to your commercial.
Okay, thank you for your call. Let's go to Davies up next. Hi, Davey. You're on the air, Davey.
Yeah. Hi. It's basically it's one thing, but it's got three parts to it. We really need to get pipelines to the east, natural gas out of the country, and all these people that are using whatever that oil is they use for their furnaces. Get the whole country switched to natural gas, and give this guy one last chance to get these pipelines built and a tanker ban and all that junk done. And if it's not done, I'll vote for separation.
If it's not done, you vote for separation.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know what these indigenous communities in Alberta are screaming about. Their agreement is with the Crown. So if Alberta does decide to separate, the federal government's got to look after them. They signed those agreements like 200 years ago or whatever. We didn't even exist 200 years ago in Alberta. So, I mean, it's not the province's responsibility. The Crown is the federal government.
Yeah,
and, it may be beneficial to stick with us and, get into these projects if we do separate. I mean, that's the way I see it anyway.
Again, don't get ahead of me. I wanted to talk about that later in the week, just all the kind of latest developments and moving parts to what's happening in Alberta with its politics and Western separation, what can be done to do all that.
But the other two, though, when you really look at it.
Okay. If it doesn't happen, if projects don't get going on the conventional side, what he's saying is he'll support Western separation. Okay. And maybe that's part of the motivation for sending the federal minister of energy out to Calgary to make a speech like that, to try and lower the temperature on that kind of stuff that we're hearing from Western Canada right now. I'm Rob Snow. More of your calls are just at energy policy is what we're talking about today, not national unity. That can be a conversation for another day.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So the new government says it wants to make Canada an energy superpower. That includes conventional energy, oil and gas, along with clean energy. We've been discussing this idea and whether you believe the government is serious when it says that, especially on the conventional energy side. 1-833-668-2577 to first-time caller Barbara up next. Hi, Barbara.
Hello. Thanks for taking
Hi, Barbara.
my call.
My pleasure, Barbara. What's your opinion?
All I have to say is, cut off the transfer payments to Quebec, especially Quebec, that gets 3/4 of it, and Ontario and Quebec and BC, and then I think the oil would flow through because they wouldn't be getting their money.
Okay. There's certainly a lot of resistance in Quebec. I reported on that last week. It's
right.
The new premier.
They're looking for. They are looking for their transfer payments. I used to live in Quebec, and
you did?
I know
Okay.
the situation there, and that's all they're looking for. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yeah, let's play the clip of Mr. Parody. Give you a little context here. So, I mean, we're hearing this change in tone, about pipelines through Quebec from François Legault, who's the current premier of Quebec, he's at least open to considering a pipeline that would run from Alberta through his province up into Sept-Îles. He sees job opportunities up there on the north shore of Quebec. But he's not popular, and there's an election in Quebec next year, and Legault's not going to win, and his party's not going to win. The Parti Québécois is on track to win right now. I mean, I suppose things could change, but right now, that's what the political tea leaves are saying. And you have the original Quebec Separatist Party, the Parti Québécois, is favored to win the election, and they have no use for pipelines from Alberta crossing through Quebec. So Pascal Paradis is the environment critic for the Parti Québécois. This is what you're up against if you're Mark Carney, and they sent certainly a lot of Liberals to Ottawa in the most recent federal election from Quebec. So listen to this.
The proposal now is to have a pipeline in Quebec. So throughout our lands, our rivers, and for the oil to be exported. So Quebec must look at its own economical interests. Where is Quebec's economical interest in such a project? Where are the profits, the revenues we're gaining here in Quebec? Where are the jobs, permanent job, long-term jobs that will be created by such an infrastructure? We don't know yet. We have not seen yet any project for which Quebec's economical interest was shown. And where are the markets? Where is the project at the present time? We have no project.
But do you agree with Premier Legault when he says that the idea of a pipeline in Quebec has become more socially acceptable right now?
There is one poll showing a certain openness, but to what? It's easy when, it comes to, there is an idea, they're floating there in the air. Okay, I might have a look at it. Where is the project? Because when push comes to shove, that's where the problems arise.
Right. That is such Pete Quebec, isn't it? Like, what's in it for us? Let's go to Linda up next. Hello, Linda. Oh, Linda, bad connection there, Linda. Just hang on. We'll see if we can get a clearer phone for you. Don't hang up, but we're going to have to go to the next caller. Gene up next. Hi, Gene.
Hey,
hi, Gene. Are you there? I'm good, Gene. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I'm
here. I'm here.
Good to hear from you. What's your opinion?
Again, just my view or my take on it is that Throne speech aligned a pretty ambitious vision for Canada to become a global energy superpower, both in the conventional and clean. And I think it can do that. But I think it's a hard goal to achieve when you're maintaining policies like Bill C-69 and things like the West Coast tanker ban. Without those ultimately being abolished, I think it's difficult. But then on the other hand, they did say that they're committed to streamlining the approval process for major projects through that new major federal project office, which is supposed to reduce approval times to 6 months. And that's just what I've read in the news that's come out here. And that would definitely help facilitate all of that superpower status. But on the other hand, you still have restrictions like Bill C-69. So it's difficult to understand how you can achieve what they say they want to when they've got such restrictive policies and bills in place that hamstring anybody who wants to do that and potentially scares away investors who would have to commit to a long-term financial obligation in order to achieve that. So while we could hope for it to happen, I don't think realistically we can actually achieve it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a company like, say, the old TransCanada Pipelines company that was building Energy East, it spent $1 billion before it gave up on the project. Are you willing to put, say, $1 billion worth of capital at risk if you still have legislation on the books like C-69 and C-48, and you're saying probably not, right? Yeah.
That's exactly true. It's why would somebody want to?
Yeah, why would somebody want to? And these companies are big companies, operations probably, if not all over North America, certainly all over the world. And there are probably jurisdictions where it would be more friendly to do that kind of business. We'll stop here, be right back, and more of your calls. Still a couple of lines available there, 1-833, and time to fit you in on this discussion as we talk about making Canada an energy superpower today on Talkback. I believe we've reconnected with Linda now. Let's try Linda again. Hi, Linda.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, hi, Linda. Go ahead. What's your opinion, please?
No, I was just wondering when he's talking about energies, what is the percentage of the clean energy as opposed to the conventional energy that he's looking at?
Good question. Don't know the answer.
Like 90% clean energy, only 10% conventional energy?
Good question.
Yeah,
And again, I don't know the
here
answer.
in
I don't
our
think
part of
anybody
the
knows the
province,
answer.
We are inundated with wind farms and solar panel farms. But the way it's set up with some of that, our power is transported to Saskatchewan, to Burstall, where it's churned into transportable energy or whatever. Then it goes south to North Dakota. So we don't get the benefit of that. And when they're asking, are they going to push that everybody's got to turn to electric? That doesn't work out here.
Okay. Why not? What do you mean it
because
doesn't work
we don't have, we don't have the water source, right? But even that,
Okay.
40 below with those heat pumps and stuff, that doesn't work out here.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just not sure which direction he's going and what his real aim is.
Okay. Well, he says that his aim is to make Canada an energy superpower and clean energy and conventional energy.
Well, yeah, for us,
And again, creating this office in Ottawa to expedite projects that are in the national interest. So details to come,
you
I
can read that
suppose.
any way you like, I think.
Right? Okay. So it's a little too vague for you.
Very vague, because we can't
Okay.
transport power across the line or across the ocean, but we can transport our oil and our gas.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't,
Okay.
yeah, I'm very skeptical.
Very skeptical. Fair enough. Fair enough. Probably with good reason. Thank you, Linda. Let's go to a call from Ontario. Doug. Hello, Doug.
Hi there.
Hi, Doug.
That's something, I want to say something real quick. I'm on the road a lot, and I depend on our local station for traffic and weather and stuff. And when your show came on, I was kind of a little bit unsettled because it was going to interfere with it. But you reserve judgment, and I've got to tell you, I am absolutely fantastic. I love this show because it's bringing people together from across the country, and the information that I need is still being delivered, which is fantastic. So it's a great job.
Okay.
Anyway, my
Thank
opinion
you.
on this is you're going to see a lot of. I would be surprised if there wasn't a ton of people that weren't skeptical about this, because the news or the desire that what he wants to do has been delivered in the only terms it can be delivered in right now, which is fairly general. If this office he creates is going to be given the power to work around those restrictions we talked about, then hopefully that will precipitate matters being done a little bit quicker. And when it comes to Alberta in particular, you had a gentleman on. I realize it's a bit of a side topic when talking about separation. Alberta's not being heard. That's one of the biggest things that bothers me. I wish Alberta could hear from us, people that I know that I've talked to. We care a great deal about our western provinces. This country needs to be closer. And hopefully, if we become an energy superpower, people are going to benefit, and it'll help draw us a bit closer. I think I'm going to do what the other guy said, give him the benefit of the doubt until he proves that he's not going to do it right. That's all.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Doug. And thank you for those kind words. I'm glad you're still getting your weather forecast and your traffic reports. I know very important. Let's go to Brad. Is up next north of Calgary today. Hello, Brad.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Brad. How are you today?
Good. I'll make a
Good.
few, just kind of couple
Sure.
quick points here. I'll try to make this short and sweet. But just to give you a quick little background, I did work in oil and gas for about 10 years, but I've now transitioned into agriculture, and I'm a farmer full-time now, and I've been there for about 5 years. So just a couple key points that I just kind of thought I'd maybe share out there as well, too, and this is really kind of what's been on the back of my mind. One is that, understanding supply and demand, and global economics as well, too. I feel like I'm a bit of a unicorn when I say this as well, is that I don't know if necessarily providing more oil and gas, well, I guess specifically oil on the global market, is going to be the financial windfall that many Canadians are expecting it will be, just purely on the notion that Canada in general, just the way how our oil reserves are, we, I believe, have one of the higher cost per barrel. I guess that's kind of like our higher cost to produce a barrel of oil compared to other countries across the world. So at some point, if we ramp up supply to become this energy superpower that a lot of people are thinking about, that naturally, unless demand goes with it, supply is going to increase, and that's going to make the cost or price per barrel drop, which is actually going to hurt revenues in essence. So really the question you have to ask is, do you want to sell less for a higher price, or do you want to sell more for a lower price? And that's smarter people beyond me, right? And then so then to that point as well too, I've always have the opinion that Canada is already an energy superpower, and I could be wrong when I say that, but Canada is an exporting nation. We've got way more people here than what we could ever use or consume locally ourselves. And I kind of laughed a couple of years ago, or I laughed to myself about a year ago when Alberta specifically, there was a warning or a mandate that was sent out that said that we had to tone back our electricity consumption because we were going to exceed the peak consumption time at that time. I can't remember if it was.
Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
And I kind of laughed. I'm like, Alberta has all of these natural resources. We are already an energy superpower where we're shipping energy to the States. How could we let this kind of happen to our own ourselves internally, right? So if we are going to go down the path of becoming an energy superpower, I'd love to see it more on the electricity side. I still want to see the oil and gas still continue levels of production as to where we're currently at. But the reality is that when you're supplying product on a global market, and somebody like OPEC comes out and makes an announcement that they're wrapping up production, and all of a sudden the price per barrel that you can get on the global market drops instantly, that same day as well too. That's just a firm reminder that we don't control the price that we can receive, and that I just think that there's a lot more restrictions, and it's just not that. I'm not looking at it through rose-colored glasses to say that we need to get all of our product to market, but I do think that there's obviously a downside to that too.
Okay. Wow. A lot to think about there. Thank you so much for your call today. Really appreciate it. Be right back.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On making Canada an energy superpower, Pat up next. Hi, Pat.
Hello. How are you guys doing today?
Very good, Pat. Good to hear from you. What's your opinion?
I love to see it. Listening to that little newscast there, or clip you played from Quebec, I don't think it'll ever happen unless they cut the transfer payments to Quebec so they can actually see that they're what they're getting as a benefit. They don't see that as a benefit. They see that as a right. And till we cut that, we're never going to be a superpower.
Yeah. And what do you think the chances are that a federal government in Ottawa would cut transfer payments to Quebec?
Oh, not a snowball and...
exactly. Yeah, I know where you're going with that. Yeah, okay. So again, you're a little bit on the skeptical side as well. There's a lot of that today.
100%. And really, we should be upgrading, like shipping bitumen. Like Keystone was going to ship bitumen down to Texas for upgrading. We shouldn't be shipping our lowest quality product. We should be shipping our highest quality product. Create more jobs here by upgrading to a light crude and then sending that out to the world.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Good to hear from you. And one more, and I think we'll call it a day for Talkback. Sean is up next. A line 2. Hi, Sean.
Hello?
Hello, Sean. Yeah, I think I got you now. Sean, go ahead.
Rob.
Yeah.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. Really appreciate you. I just want to say I'm very, very skeptical here. I hope we do it, but the facts are we have the NDP in BC. We have Eby, who isn't exactly ecstatic about more resource development, let's say that. We have Quebec, which, is Quebec, right? They're not very pro-resource development either. The only one who has surprised me in this whole thing is Manitoba with canoe there, with
Yes,
WAP
very
Canoe,
good.
who seems to be very pro development, especially with the ports, the tidewater.
Yeah.
But I'm very skeptical, man. And you know, being from Alberta, born and raised, I can tell you right now, the majority of my friends are, and I'll say this, reluctant separatists right now. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. And so I hope for the country's sake we can actually make something happen. But I'm telling you, if we don't, separation is a real possibility. It's no joke.
Okay. Again, a conversation for another day. But thank you so much. Good to hear from you. And thank you for all of your calls. Really appreciated the discussion today. Such an important topic. We'll see what happens in the months, maybe years ahead. I'm Rob Snow. The very latest breaking news is coming up next. New topics and more of your calls tomorrow on Talkback on News Radio.